I was 17 the day I came home to an empty house and a note on the kitchen counter. It wasn't some heartfelt goodbye. It wasn't a "we're doing this for your own good." Just 4 words scribbled in my mom's handwriting. "You'll figure it out." No context, no explanation, just gone. The fridge was unplugged, closets cleared, furniture vanished. My entire family, mom, dad, and my younger brother Noah, had packed up their lives and moved 2 states away without saying a word. Like I was never part of them to begin with. At first, I thought it was some kind of twisted prank. I called every number I had. No answer. I walked to the neighbors. They shrugged, said they thought we were just moving fast. One of them handed me a bag of frozen pizza rolls my mom had left behind. The landlord showed up a few days later, told me the lease had been terminated early. I had a week to vacate. That's when it hit me they didn't forget me. They left me. On purpose. The truth is, they'd been erasing me for years before they made it official. When I was 13, I baked a cake from scratch for my mom's birthday. Spent the entire afternoon measuring, mixing, cleaning. She took 1 bite, spat it out, and called it lumpy. No thank you, no smile, just tossed it in the trash. At 15, I stayed up late every night tutoring Noah through finals. He never once said thank you, just rolled his eyes, called me a know-it-all, and slammed his bedroom door when I corrected his grammar. At 16, I handed my entire paycheck from my part-time job to my dad because the electric bill was overdue. 2 weeks later, he screamed at me for being useless. Useful. That's all I ever was. Not loved, not wanted, just tolerated. Until even that ran out. After they disappeared, I crashed at my friend Sadie's for 3 nights. But her parents were already stretched thin and I didn't want to be a burden, so I left. I used the last of my savings to rent a storage unit 5 feet by 10, no heat, no light, but it locked. That was enough. I slept there on and off for a few months. Hid behind cardboard boxes during the day. Showered at the YMCA when no one was looking. Ate spoonfuls of peanut butter because it didn't need a fridge. I applied for jobs at the public library using the free computers. Pretended I still had a home, still had parents, still mattered to someone. Eventually, a miracle happened. A diner down the street needed a night server. The manager, Gina, looked me over, saw my busted shoes, my borrowed hoodie, and said, "Start tonight. Don't steal. Don't talk back. We're square." I almost cried. She paid me under the table until I could get a new ID. Let me nap in the break room once when I nearly passed out from exhaustion. That job saved me. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't a dream. But it was the first time in my life someone saw me and didn't flinch. That first year was pure survival mode. I bought a prepaid phone, saved every receipt, watched hours of YouTube videos on budgeting and job interviews, wrote goals on sticky notes and stuck them to the inside of the locker Gina gave me. Get stable, buy a laptop, leave this town. Little by little I did. By 19, I had 2 jobs and a studio apartment with mismatched furniture and 0 natural light, but it was mine. By 22, I landed a temp gig cleaning out old files at a downtown law office. It paid 3 times what I made at the diner. I said yes before the guy finished offering it. That gig led to another, then another. Turns out I had a knack for organizing chaos, and people liked that. I showed up early, took notes, asked questions, learned fast. By 25, I had enough clients to start my own consulting business. Just me, a Craigslist desk, and a laptop I bought on payment plan. By 27, I had 5 contractors under me, a real office, and a client list that included companies I used to Google just to imagine working there. And by 29, I hit 7 figures. Not pretend money, not Instagram influencer numbers. Actual savings, actual retirement account, no debt, health insurance I could afford. The day my bank app crossed $1 million, I sat on the floor and cried so hard I scared my dog. I had done it. Without them. Over those years, not once did I hear from my family. Not a birthday text. Not a "how are you?" Not even a wrong number call. They vanished from my life like I was a phase they outgrew. Once I saw Noah's name pop up in my people you may know list on Facebook. He had a wife, a kid maybe. Still living in the state they abandoned me for. I stared at his profile photo for an hour wondering what he told people about me. Did he say I ran away? Or worse, did he not mention me at all? Sometimes I think it would have been easier to hate them. But it was never hate. It was heartbreak. The kind that doesn't scream. Just quietly eats away at you while you try to smile at client meetings. A few months ago, everything changed. I did a podcast interview about surviving family estrangement, just one episode. Thought it would help someone feel less alone. It blew up. 1 million downloads in 4 days. My inbox flooded with strangers telling me I gave voice to their pain. People crying in their cars, thanking me for saying what they couldn't. And then one email landed in my inbox with a subject line I'll never forget. "You're still our daughter." It was from my mother. I must have read that email 10 times before closing my laptop. My stomach felt like it dropped straight through the floor. 12 years of silence, and suddenly, "You're still our daughter." That's it. No apology, no context, no "we're sorry for leaving you alone at 17 without so much as a goodbye." Just that. I told myself not to care, not to feel anything, but feelings don't exactly ask for permission. I sat there watching the cursor blink like it was waiting for a reaction I couldn't give. Later that night, another message popped up, this one from Noah. His subject line, "Can we fix this?" And just like that, every wall I'd built around myself started to shake a little. He said he'd heard the podcast, that it hit him hard, that he hadn't known everything, claimed he was only 15 when they left, that he didn't have a say, that he'd always wondered about me but didn't know how to reach out. Said he was proud of what I'd built. I didn't believe him, not fully. Because if he really cared, why now? Why after my story had gone viral? Why not on birthday, number 181920? Still, I responded. Short and simple. 12 years. What changed? He replied almost instantly. Said he couldn't live with the silence anymore. That seeing my face online made him realize how much time had passed. That he wanted his kids to know their aunt. That he wanted to do the right thing now, even if it was late. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I forwarded both emails to my therapist, Maya. She called me the next morning. "You don't have to respond," she said gently. "But you're allowed to sit with your feelings. See what comes up." So that's what I did. For a week, I went about life like nothing had changed. Took client calls, cooked dinner, hit the gym, smiled when people congratulated me on the podcast. But the truth, my head was a mess. Noah's message kept replaying in my mind like a song I didn't ask to hear. It didn't beg for forgiveness, didn't ask for money. It just existed. And weirdly, it felt more real than my mom's email ever did. 10 days passed before I finally typed a reply. "If you wanted to reach out," I wrote, "why wait until after the attention I hit send before I could second guess it?" His next email was longer, more vulnerable. He admitted things I hadn't expected, said our parents' business had failed not long after they moved, that things got rough, that he was working 2 jobs at one point, that his wife was pregnant again and the stress was eating at them. Then he dropped the sentence I was waiting for. "We don't want anything from you, I promise. We just want a chance to make things right." But the timing. The sudden interest after I went public with my trauma, it didn't sit right. I didn't respond for days. Then my mom sent another email, this time with a bunch of old family photos. Me as a toddler splashing in a kiddie pool. Noah and I building a snowman in our backyard. A blurry shot of all 4 of us at the beach back when I still thought love lived in that house. At the bottom of the message, she wrote, "We made mistakes. We want to make amends." It felt off. Like someone trying to reconstruct a house with only the ashes. I brought it up in my next session with Maya. She asked, "What would closure look like to you, and what would it cost you to find out?" I didn't have an answer. So I started small. I agreed to meet Noah. Just him, no parents, neutral ground. We picked a cafe halfway between our cities. I flew in the morning of, booked a hotel, sat in the lobby for an hour trying not to lose my nerve. My fingers kept hovering over the cancel reservation button. But at 2 o'clock sharp, I walked through the cafe door. He was already there, standing awkwardly near the counter. Older now, softer around the edges, still had the same nervous energy. We sat down, didn't hug, didn't even shake hands. Just coffee between us and 12 years of silence. For a while, we talked about nothing. The weather, my flight, his drive, his kids, my business. It was like trying to talk to someone who vaguely remembered being your brother in a dream once. Then he cleared his throat and finally said it. I didn't know they were going to leave you behind. I didn't speak, just stared. He kept going. Said they told him I'd decided to stay, that I had a plan, that I was going to live with a friend's family, that I'd chosen to separate. None of it was true. I told him everything. About the storage unit, the YMCA showers, the peanut butter dinners, the job at the diner, Gina, my first laptop, my slow crawl toward something like stability. His eyes got glassy. He whispered I didn't know. And maybe that part was true. But it didn't erase the years he never checked, never called, never wondered enough to type my name into Google. By the time our drinks were empty, he looked broken. Showed me a photo of his daughter. Told me she asked about me even though she didn't know my name yet. Said she liked building snowmen. Something about that undid me a little. We left the cafe without any promises. He hugged me. I let him, but I didn't hug back. Back in my hotel room, I called Maya. Told her everything. She said something that stuck. He might be sorry, but he's still shifting the blame. Saying he was a kid. Saying he didn't know. That's not the same as accountability. She was right. He was 15. Not 5. Old enough to know what abandonment looked like. That night, my phone rang again. A number I didn't recognize. I didn't answer. Voicemail. It was my mom. Her voice sounded older, but still clipped. She cried while telling me how proud she was. Said she'd always known I'd make something of myself. That I was always special. I didn't cry. I didn't feel pride. Just tired. Then she said it. The question that had haunted me for over a decade. We knew you were strong, she said. We thought you'd be better off. Better off. They thought leaving me without food money support was some kind of twisted compliment. I hung up, blocked her number, threw my phone across the bed like it could burn me. The next morning, my dad emailed me. First contact in 12 years. No apology, no warmth. Just paragraphs about how hard their life had been, about medical bills, about bankruptcy, about how Noah's wife needed surgery, about how they might lose their house. Then at the bottom, the line I'd been waiting for. Can you help? 12 years of silence, of abandonment, of surviving without them. And now they wanted help. I didn't reply. I forwarded the email to Maya with one sentence, and there it is. She called immediately. You don't owe them anything, she said. And maybe for the first time I started to believe that. I didn't respond to my dad's email. Not because I didn't have words, but because I had too many. And none of them would have made a difference. He wasn't reaching out to apologize. He was fishing for a lifeline, the kind he never offered me when I needed one. I let it sit in my inbox like a warning label. This is what they really wanted. Not connection, not healing, just access. A few days passed quiet on the surface, but inside my head, it was chaos. I kept thinking about that line, can you help, the way it slid into the bottom of the email like a foot in the door. Like I owed them something because we once shared a last name. I talked to Maya again. She told me what I already knew deep down. That people who hurt you without apology don't get to rewrite history just because they've run out of options. Still, it left a bruise. The following week, another message came. This time from my mom again. It had a handful of old photos attached. Me at 5 holding a sparkler. Noah and I curled up in a blanket fort. The 4 of us smiling on a beach somewhere, maybe Florida. I didn't even remember that trip. They looked like someone else's memories, like I'd stumbled into a stranger's photo album. At the bottom of her message, she wrote, "We made mistakes. We want to make amends." There was no plan, no details, no accountability, just vague remorse floating in the ether. I showed Maya the email during our next session. She nodded like she'd seen it 1,000 times before. You're not required to engage with every olive branch, she said, especially when it's attached to the same old tree. I laughed at that, one of those sharp, humorless laughs that comes out when you're too tired to cry. But still, something stuck in my chest. Not guilt, not love, just a weight. So I decided to meet Noah again. No parents, no drama, just one more conversation before I made up my mind for good. We met at the same cafe. This time, I didn't feel like running. I felt clear. Tired, but clear. Noah looked nervous, like he was afraid I'd changed my mind. I hadn't. I just wanted to understand what he thought this all was. He ordered tea. I got coffee. We sat at the same window table. The small talk didn't last as long this time. He leaned in, hands clasped, like he was trying to keep them from shaking. "I told them not to contact you again," he said. "But they're scared. They're broke. And I think seeing you, it made them realize they burned every bridge." I didn't respond. He sighed. "Emma, I know what they did was wrong. I know it ruined everything. But I still believe people can change." I tilted my head. "Do you believe they want to change, or do you believe they're just uncomfortable now?" He didn't answer that, just stared into his tea like it had answers. I laid it out clearly. I'm not going to save them. I'm not going to pretend they didn't destroy me. But I am willing to have you in my life again, with limits, no money, no guilt trips, and absolutely no backdoor communication from them. If you want this, it's on my terms." He nodded slowly. "Okay, I understand." And maybe he did. Or maybe he was just saying what I needed to hear. Later that night, he sent me a photo of his daughter drawing something with crayons. A stick figure with messy hair standing next to another smaller figure. Underneath, she'd scrawled the words, "Aunt Emma." It was the first time my name had been written in that family in over a decade. It felt strange. Not good, not bad, just new. But the peace didn't last long. 3 days later, my mom called. I hadn't given her my number, so clearly Noah had. That alone was enough to make my stomach drop. I didn't answer, but she left a voicemail. Her voice was thin, tearful. "I know I hurt you," she said. "I know we abandoned you, but I always believed you'd make it. You were so strong even back then. I didn't think we were leaving you. I thought we were setting you free." That broke something in me. Set me free, like a dog off a leash. I sat there in the dark, listening to her voice on loop, thinking about every night I cried myself to sleep on a rolled-up hoodie in that storage unit. Every spoonful of peanut butter. Every shower I stole from the YMCA. Every night shift that almost killed me from exhaustion. And I thought, no, that wasn't freedom. That was abandonment. And she needed to say it plainly, not twisted into something noble. I blocked her again. The next day, I got an email from my dad. And unlike my mom's performative regret, his message was pure manipulation. He talked about their debt, about how hard things had been, how they'd given up everything to make a better life. And then again, he asked for help. Not advice, not forgiveness, money. He didn't even pretend to care about how I'd survived. Just dove straight into their problems like I was some kind of lifeline they were entitled to. I didn't respond, but I sent it to Maya. She called me even though it was her day off. "You know what this is," she said. "They're not reaching out because they miss you. They're reaching out because they need you. That's not reconciliation, that's convenience." And I knew she was right. Deep down, I knew it the second I saw the subject line. Still, something inside me felt cracked open, so I did the one thing I hadn't done yet. I called Noah, told him the truth. I'm done pretending this is some kind of fairy tale reunion. They hurt me, they left me, and now they want something from me. I can't play that role. I won't. He was quiet for a second. Then he said, "They're scared, Em. They're desperate. And I'm not a solution," I replied. "I'm not a check. I'm not a second chance they never earned." Then he said something that told me everything I needed to know. "I just hoped you'd be willing to help them. You've done so well. It's not like you'd even notice." I hung up. I didn't yell. I didn't explain. I just disconnected. That night, I packed a bag and booked a flight to Portland. My friend Sam lived there, one of the only people who helped me when I had nothing. She let me sleep on her couch once when I was 18 and invisible. She was safe, real. The kind of person who shows up when they don't have to. When I got to her apartment, I didn't need to say a word. She just handed me a glass of wine and pulled me into a hug. "I saw the podcast," she whispered. "You did good." And for the first time in weeks, I believed it. I stayed in Portland for 4 days. No emails, no texts, no drama. Just long walks, deep breaths, and enough coffee to pretend I wasn't still unraveling inside. Sam let me be quiet when I needed to be, and loud when I couldn't help it. There's a kind of safety in old friends who don't expect you to be okay, who remember you when you were nothing and still showed up. We didn't talk much about my family. She didn't push. But on my last night there, we sat on her tiny balcony under string lights, and she said, "You know the way they're acting. It's not love. It's fear of being forgotten." That hit hard. Because she was right. They didn't miss me. They missed control. Missed what I could offer now that I had something worth taking. When I flew back home, I felt heavier and lighter at the same time. Like I'd set something down but picked up something else. A new kind of responsibility. Not to them, to myself. The minute I walked into my apartment, I saw it. A bouquet of roses on the floor just inside my door. No card. No note. Just the smell, thick and sweet, like it was trying too hard. I checked with the doorman. He said a man had delivered them an hour before, said he didn't give a name. Just smiled and walked away. I felt sick. That wasn't a gift. It was a message. I tossed the flowers straight into the trash. Then I sat on the couch, heart pounding, trying to figure out what to do. I didn't want to call Maya again. I didn't want to seem paranoid. But deep down, I wasn't wondering if it was them. I was wondering how much further they'd go. 20 minutes later, I made the call. She picked up on the first ring. "I need to talk," I said. She didn't ask why. She just said, "Come in tomorrow, early." That night I couldn't sleep. Every creak in the hallway made me sit up straight. Every car outside made my skin prickle. I hated that they still had this power, that they could reach into my space and twist it into something unrecognizable. By morning, I was exhausted and furious. In therapy, Maya didn't mince words. "This is harassment," she said. "This isn't them reaching out. This is them trying to unsettle you. It's a pattern. They escalate when they lose control." I nodded, because I'd already figured that out. I just needed someone to say it out loud. The following day, I started researching restraining orders. Called a lawyer friend from college, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. She didn't even hesitate. "I'll connect you with someone," she said. "You're not overreacting. You're protecting yourself." Her voice was calm, reassuring. Exactly what I needed. But I didn't expect what came next. That night, my phone rang again. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, a message popped up. My mom, sobbing, saying she'd had chest pains, saying she was at the hospital, saying she was scared. "I need you," she cried. "Please, Emma, just call me, please." My hands trembled, because for a second, just 1 second, I felt that old reflex. The part of me that still wanted to be good, the child in me who thought being helpful meant being loved. But I didn't call back. I called the hospital instead. Asked if someone by her name had been admitted. They confirmed it. Mild heart attack, stable, being monitored. I hung up and just sat there. She wasn't faking it, but she was still using it. I forwarded the voicemail to Maya. Then I turned off my phone and cried. Not because I was sad, because I was angry. Because no matter what happened, it felt like I couldn't win. If I reached out, I'd be pulled back into the trap. If I stayed away, I was cold, heartless, unforgiving. The next morning, a new email from my dad. "She almost died," it read. "Don't you think you've punished us enough?" No signature, no warmth, just accusation. It was like they didn't even see me as a person anymore. Just a wall standing between them and what they wanted. I didn't answer. I packed a bag, called my assistant, and booked a rental outside the city. A cabin I'd found online surrounded by pine trees and nothing else. I needed space. Not the kind you ask for. The kind you take because the world won't give it freely. The kind that says, "This is mine," and you don't get to ruin it. I was halfway through organizing the cabin kitchen when my phone buzzed. A voicemail from Noah. "They're coming to your city," he said. I told them not to. I swear, but they won't listen. My whole body went cold. I called my building's security immediately. Gave them photos, gave them names, made it clear they were not to be let in under any circumstances. They took it seriously, promised to notify me if anyone suspicious showed up. I thanked them, then sat on the couch staring at the door, waiting for the knock. It came 2 days later, a quiet knock but unmistakable. I looked through the peephole. My parents, both of them, standing there like they had every right. My mom looked smaller, somehow. My dad had a plastic bag in his hand. I didn't open the door. I didn't say a word. I just leaned against the wall and waited until they left. Then I called Maya again. "This is too much," I said. "They're not just showing up, they're invading." She agreed. Said I needed to get legal protection. Immediately. She connected me with a new attorney, someone experienced in family harassment cases. I met with him the next day. He didn't flinch when I told him everything. Just took notes, asked smart questions, made a plan. "We'll file for an emergency protective order," he said, "and we'll document everything." That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a glass of wine and started writing it all down. Every voicemail, every message, every knock on the door. I wasn't writing for them, I was writing for me, to remember, to prove it happened, to remind myself I wasn't crazy. Halfway through, a message came through on my laptop. Noah again. This time, a photo of his daughter holding a handmade card. "We miss you," it said, drawn in crayon. "Please come back." I stared at it for a long time, not because it hurt, but because it didn't. Because I didn't feel guilt or sadness or longing, I felt calm, certain. I couldn't go back, not to them, not even for her. I was finally starting to see the truth. You don't owe your abusers access to your healing, even if they gave birth to you, even if they're sorry, especially when they're not. The emergency protective order was granted within 48 hours. I walked out of the courthouse with paperwork in my bag and steel in my chest. Finally, something official. Something that didn't rely on me just enduring, just hoping they'd stop. It wasn't closure, but it was a start. The judge's tone had been sharp, almost annoyed, like he'd seen this too many times. He didn't question my fear. He didn't ask me to explain more than I had to. That felt rare. That felt like a small win. Back at home, I changed my locks again. Bought new cameras, better ones. Installed motion lights in the hallway. Paranoia doesn't feel paranoid when it's earned. I even asked my assistant to handle all incoming calls for the next week. I just needed a break from bracing myself every time the phone rang. For a few days, it was quiet. I worked. I slept better. I ate full meals without checking the window every 5 minutes. But that calm never lasts long when you're dealing with people who don't respect limits. On Friday morning, my inbox lit up with an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line was just my name. The message inside was short. No signature, no introduction, just a sentence. "We were just trying to protect you from yourself." I didn't shake this time. I didn't cry or freeze. I stared at that screen with something I hadn't felt in years, rage without confusion. I wasn't wondering what they meant. I wasn't wondering if I'd misunderstood. I finally saw the cycle for what it was: gaslighting dressed up as concern abuse packaged as parenting. I sent the email to my lawyer, then deleted it from my inbox. I wasn't keeping their poison on my screen. Later that day, Noah called again. I debated ignoring it, but something in me was tired of leaving doors half shut. I answered. His voice was quiet, defeated. "They're saying I betrayed them," he said. "They're threatening to cut me off." I waited. Didn't say a word. Let the silence speak. Finally, he sighed. "I don't know what to do anymore." I told him gently, but firmly. "That's not my burden to carry, Noah. I warned you this would happen. You let them back into your life." I didn't. He didn't argue. Just said, "I miss you, Em." And for the first time, I didn't flinch at the nickname. I just said, "Then show me. Protect your own family. And stop calling until you've figured out what side you're really on." We hung up. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel cruel. I felt honest. That night, I went to dinner with coworkers, laughed, drank a little too much wine. It was strange how normal it all felt, even with so much chaos swirling around me. But maybe that was part of healing too, being able to hold joy in one hand and pain in the other without dropping either. Over the next week, the silence stretched on. No emails, no calls, no knocks. I almost believed it was over. Almost. Until the morning I walked out of my building and found a package on my car windshield, wrapped in brown paper, no return address. Inside was a photo album, one I hadn't seen in years. Family pictures. Me, age 5, in a Halloween costume. Noah, gap-toothed and grinning. Our parents younger, looking like people I didn't recognize anymore. At the back of the album, a handwritten note, "You used to love us." I don't know how long I stood there staring at that sentence. It felt like a slap wrapped in nostalgia. I brought it upstairs, showed my lawyer, showed Maya. They both said the same thing, it was bait. An emotional trap meant to pull me back in, meant to make me doubt my own boundaries. So, I didn't keep it. I handed it over as evidence had it documented, then watched as my lawyer tucked it into a folder marked incidents. I walked home feeling like I'd taken another step towards something. Not peace, maybe, but power. Then came Jenny. I didn't recognize her at first. She showed up at my door one evening, eyes hollow, hair pulled into a messy bun, holding a toddler on one hip. "Emma," she said softly, "please, I'm not here to fight." I hesitated, but something in her face, the exhaustion, the fear, made me open the door. "I left Noah," she said, stepping inside. "I'm staying with a friend. I needed to talk to someone who's lived through this." She glanced down at her daughter, who clutched a stuffed bear like it was the only safe thing in the world. I made tea. We sat at my kitchen table while her daughter slept on the couch. Jenny told me everything. That the pressure had finally cracked Noah. That he'd started drinking more. That he'd lashed out. Not violent, not physical, but cold, dismissive, disappearing for days. Their parents had poisoned him in ways she couldn't fix. I told him, she said, her voice shaking, if he didn't cut contact with them, I was leaving. He didn't. So I did. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't mad at her. I wasn't even mad at Noah anymore. I just felt tired. "I don't know how to fix any of this," I admitted. "You don't have to," she said quietly. "You just have to survive it." She left a few hours later. I offered her the guest room, but she declined. Said she had a plan, that she just needed a reset. I believed her. Jenny wasn't like our parents. She knew how to walk away. After she left, I sat in the silence again. Only this time it didn't feel empty. It felt earned. Like I'd created space where something new could grow, even if I didn't know what yet. A few days later, I met with Maya again. I told her everything. The package, the photo album, Jenny, the unraveling of whatever was left between me and Noah. She listened like she always did, without interruption. Then she asked, "Do you feel like you're healing?" I thought about it. Really thought. "I feel like I've stopped pretending it didn't matter," I said. "I'm not over it. But I'm not buried under it either." She smiled. "That's progress." I walked home slowly that day, watching the way the sunlight hit the buildings, the way people moved around me, laughing, talking, living. I'd spent so long surviving that I'd forgotten what it felt like to simply exist without fear. And even though that fear hadn't fully left, it had loosened its grip. That night I started writing again. Not emails, not journal entries. A story. My story. From the beginning, not to publish, not for revenge, but for myself. To remember what I'd lived through. To remind myself that I made it out, that I rebuilt something solid from the ruins. I didn't know what the final chapter would be yet. I still don't. But I knew one thing for sure, it wouldn't end with me going back. It wouldn't end with me shrinking myself down to fit their version of the truth. It would end with me choosing myself, fully, unapologetically. And that was enough for now. 3 months passed. No more messages, no more packages, no sightings. My parents, for the first time in years, vanished. Whether it was fear of the legal consequences or simple exhaustion, I didn't know, and I didn't care. The silence didn't feel ominous anymore. It felt earned. A boundary finally respected, even if by force. During those months, my life started to stretch out in new directions. I took up hiking, reconnected with old friends I'd pushed away when I was too overwhelmed to maintain anything beyond survival. I even went on a few dates, which felt surreal, sitting across from someone who didn't know any of this, who laughed easily and leaned in when I spoke, not because they were waiting to use my vulnerability against me, but because they genuinely wanted to hear me. Jenny found a new apartment. Just a small place, 2 bedrooms, lots of windows. She enrolled in classes online, started rebuilding her life piece by piece. We'd talk every week, usually, while Lily babbled in the background. Noah reached out once, a short message through a mutual friend. It said, "I'm in therapy. I'm sorry. I hope you're okay." I didn't reply, but I didn't block him either. It wasn't forgiveness, but it wasn't rage anymore either. It was distance, necessary, clear, and finally respected. I'd gotten better at knowing what I needed and what I didn't. That was the quiet reward of surviving this kind of pain, learning how to set your own terms without apology. Some mornings, I still woke up expecting a knock at the door, a message, a reminder that they were watching. But most mornings, I just woke up. My business was thriving. I'd hired 2 more people. We moved into a new office, sunlit, open, filled with plants and laughter. I hosted my first in-person workshop, and afterwards, someone came up to me, eyes glassy with tears, and said, "Your story helped me leave a situation I never thought I could escape." That stuck with me. One afternoon, as I walked out of the office, I noticed something taped to the glass door. My stomach dropped, but it wasn't a threat. Just a flyer. Someone else's handwriting. An event notice. Nothing to do with me. Still, it reminded me how deep the trauma ran. How one strange piece of paper could make my heart race. Healing isn't linear. I knew that. I reminded myself every day. Then came the letter. It arrived through Marcus. He'd insisted any future contact go through him. Smart move. I recognized my mother's handwriting on the envelope even before he called to tell me. Inside was a handwritten note, not long, not flowery. Just a few sentences. "I'm sorry for the way we hurt you. We are both in therapy now. We are learning. We won't contact you again unless you want us to. But if there's ever a day you're willing to talk, our door is open." No guilt, no excuses, just words. I stared at that letter for a long time. Not because I was tempted, but because I didn't feel the way I expected. I didn't feel rage or sorrow or longing. I felt peace. Like something inside me had finally settled. Like a chapter had truly closed. I didn't respond. I put the letter in the drawer with the others. Not to revisit, just to keep a record of my own clarity, of how far I'd come. Weeks later, Jenny invited me to Lily's birthday party. 4 years old. A bounce house cupcakes with too much frosting, paper crowns that kept falling off tiny heads. I brought a gift box, of course, and sat on the grass with Lily while she opened it. She looked up at me with a grin that knocked the breath out of my chest. "You're my favorite auntie," she whispered like it was a secret. In that moment, I thought about how easily things could have turned out differently. How close I'd come to being erased from this little girl's life. How close I'd come to losing myself completely. And yet here I was, chosen present real. That mattered more than any apology ever could. As the party wound down, Jenny handed me a cupcake and said, "You're the reason we're here, you know? If you hadn't stood up, I might still be pretending everything was fine." I didn't know what to say. Just smiled, handed her a napkin as frosting smeared on her chin. "We saved each other," I said. And it was true. Later that evening, after the kids were asleep and most guests had gone, we sat around Jenny's kitchen table. Michael had driven in to see Lily, stayed for dinner. He looked healthier, clearer. He didn't talk much, but when he did, it felt more grounded, like the fog had lifted. At one point, he turned to me and said, "I know I don't deserve your trust, Emma, but I want to earn it. I want Lily and the baby to grow up knowing the truth, all of it. And I want them to know you." I nodded. No promises, but no rejection either. Just another brick laid in the slow rebuilding of something real. That night, as I drove home, I thought about the word family, how it had shifted, broken, reformed, how it was no longer something I was born into, but something I got to define. People who chose me, people I chose back, people who showed up even when it was hard. I still had bad days. Triggers. Moments where I flinched at unexpected kindness or second-guessed a normal conversation. But those moments didn't control me anymore. They were echoes, not anchors, and for the first time since I was 17, I felt free. Not because my parents apologized, not because they finally saw what they'd done, but because I stopped needing them to. I stopped chasing closure from people who weren't capable of giving it. I gave it to myself instead, and I built something better from the ashes, something real, something mine. Story 2. In exchange for free money, I offered my unemployed stepbrother a well-paying job. Unaware that it was his final opportunity to be kind, he hounded me for months and attempted to get me dismissed. My stepbrother was the golden child when I was growing up, and I loved it that way. I was glad for my stepbrother Tyler, who had all C's when my parents held a celebration for him after tearing up my report card since I received a mix of A's and B's. And although Tyler received twice as much dessert for carrying his plate to the sink, while I was scolded for being too quiet and unappreciative at the dinner table, I was glad for him because I knew that this would only help me in the long run. Additionally, I was aware that it would eventually drive a wedge between us. I was correct about both of those things, of course. Because of how hard my inferiority mentality made me study, I completed high school with all honors, whereas Tyler failed his junior year. Tyler was practically in legal debt by the time he was 17, and I moved out the moment I became 18 and paid for the apartment with my own money. As soon as I moved out, my parents actually ceased communicating with me, and I returned the favor by never visiting them around the holidays. To keep Tyler from being totally dependent on our parents, I only sent him $200 in cash every 2 months. Apart from that, we didn't communicate. I just knew that he had managed to land a position at a nearby McDonald's as a supervisor. To be honest, I like it that way. I didn't want my relatives to know how I was feeling. To visit them again, I waited until I had a stable job, a good automobile condo, and my college degree. Instead, I received a Thanksgiving that will always be etched in my memory. I had hoped that this would be the moment that finally revealed them. I arrived wearing an outdated Navy outfit, and Tyler was given a large check and a job offer. The door was opened by my stepfather. He looked so much older that I nearly gasped. In the meantime, Botox was poured into my mother's face. They really invited me in, which surprised me. I never let my guard down, though, and their facade of goodwill didn't crumble until we all sat down in the living room with our step-parents. We began by keeping each other informed, and I learned that Tyler had been let off from McDonald's within a year and has been without a job ever since. This is my time to inform him about the job, I observed him say. I got started. We're presently searching for well, look at me, I work at a bank. He interrupted. I get paid for wearing a suit and using a calculator. My folks were laughing heartily as I looked at him blankly. I had not seen him for over 8 years. He was no longer a man-child, surely. He would start making weird expressions or calling me a desk monkey under his breath every time I tried to continue dismissing it as some stupid joke. I simply let out a sigh and saw Tyler for the first time. For what purpose? He was an unworthy loser. I simply gave him the $15,000 check out of my pocket and abandoned the job offer. However, he went too far rather than simply nodding at me or even thanking me. Your deceased father must be very proud. You proved to be a money-grubbing person. My expression fell. In an instant, I felt so angry that my cheeks and neck began to boil. He got up to acknowledge that instead of confronting me, he was going to flee and lock himself in the bathroom when I got up to approach him with my fists clenched at my sides. My parents didn't want to be involved, so they essentially glued themselves to the sofa. I just approached Tyler and taunted him by gently unlocking the door from the outside. Hey Tyler, did you know that today I was going to make you an offer for a position that would start at $60,000 quiet? However, if you would rather spend your day beating your hot dog and staring at females who will never desire you from your childhood bedroom that you never left, then, by all means, quiet. After that, I simply went without even bothering to open the door. Though I was largely still pleased that I could assist him, a tiny part of me was upset that I had allowed him to retain the check. As it happens, Tyler wasn't very interested in the check. Neither did he desire the job. Rather, he sought to destroy my life. Tyler chose to exploit my remarks to destroy all I had ever fought for since they hurt him so profoundly, even though I wasn't aware of it at the time. After a week or so, I began receiving strange calls at work. When I answered, someone would call me by name and then hang up. After that, I received a ton of membership confirmation emails in my mailbox. I had somehow subscribed to every mailing offered by porn sites. Not my personal email, but my business email. I assumed it would just happen once, so I reset my passwords and went on. Then I started getting weird stares in the corridor from my neighbors. It turned out that flyers accusing me of operating an unlawful company out of my flat had been posted around my condo complex. My whole name and unit number were on the flyers. I recognized Tyler right away, but how could he have known my residence? My bank address, not my home address, was on the check I handed him. After a few days of worrying, I realized that my mother had requested my address in order to send a Christmas card the previous year. She clearly gave Tyler the information, but she never sent anything. From there, things rapidly got out of hand. I never bought pricey items that would show up on my card requiring me to pay for them or deny delivery, yet I started receiving parcels. In the parking garage of my building, my car got keyed. 3 nights in a row, someone complained about noise to my condo association. All of them were bothersome but doable. When I received a call from my supervisor inquiring about my well-being, it was the final straw. My stepbrother apparently phoned HR to report that I was experiencing a mental health crisis and could require an evaluation. I was done playing defense, and if my employer hadn't known me better, it may have significantly harmed my reputation at work. It was time to learn the truth about Tyler's activities and stop them. For the first time in years, I gave my mother a call and inquired about Tyler's well-being. She began her 20-minute diatribe by stating that he had tremendous intentions but was in between opportunities. The crucial element. As I had predicted, he was still living at home in the bedroom from his youth. I had to find out how far he was prepared to go, but more significantly, I had to make sure he knew that tampering with me would have disastrous consequences. I no longer had to be the calm, understanding stepsister. Tyler had no idea what he was getting himself into if he wanted a battle. I reasoned that I had to be shrewd about how I responded if Tyler wanted to ruin my life. Simply going up to him would only exacerbate the situation. The guy most likely thought I would storm into my mom's house and yell at him, which would just serve to reinforce their unbalanced storyline. No, I needed to be more calculated. I started by securing my online accounts, changing all of my passwords, enabling 2-factor authentication, and setting up a Google alert for my name. I set fraud warnings on everything by calling my bank credit card providers and even the 3 credit agencies. Tyler attempting to create accounts in my name was the last thing I needed. I took care of the physical security after that. I discussed the matter with my building management. To keep things ambiguous, I mentioned that I had a family member that was disturbed and may cause issues. He committed to notifying security and ensuring that no shipments were accepted without my express consent. Additionally, I purchased a low-cost camera for my front entrance. Nothing fancy, just a simple ringing doorbell. I was attempting to choose my next course of action during all of this. Although I didn't want to become like Tyler, I also wasn't going to take things easy. That weekend, I made the hasty decision to visit my hometown in order to obtain intel rather than to confront Tyler. I parked a few blocks away from my folks' house after driving down on Saturday morning. There had been little change in their area. The walkways are crumbling and the houses are ancient. When I saw Tyler leaving through the front door, I was sitting in my car wondering what in the world I was doing. He had layered a dirty sweatshirt on his Thanksgiving sweatpants, which were still soiled. A true fashion icon. He passed by without even looking at me, and I sagged in my chair as he made his way to the convenience shop on the corner. I chose to go with him. Just enough to see what he was doing, but not too near. After purchasing cigarettes and a case of inexpensive beer, he made his way back toward the home without entering. As an alternative, he went to the old shed on the side yard. Tyler unlocked the shed, walked inside, and stayed for approximately 20 minutes before leaving again and returning to the home. My parents only ever used that shed to store the lawnmower. Fascinating. The next day, I waited until Tom's and my mother's automobiles were gone before approaching them. Since I was a child, they have always had breakfast at the restaurant on Sunday mornings. I assumed Tyler would be engrossed in his video games or asleep. What I wanted to see was the shed. It was inexpensive and simple to pick the lock. I appreciate YouTube tutorials. Well, that wasn't what I anticipated inside. Tyler had created a makeshift office. On the wall were images of myself, pictures from my social media accounts before I closed everything down, copies of my job profile, and even a map with my apartment marked in red. There was also an old laptop, a printer, and heaps of paper on a desk. It resembled something from a subpar suspense film. I was particularly interested in a notepad with the name Operation Payback written on it. The real Tyler. When I opened it, I discovered a comprehensive account of everything he had done to me to date, along with a ton of other things. He had a plan. Some of them were immature. I'm placing a 3 a.m. pizza order. Some were more worrisome. He had made notes about getting in touch with a number of my coworkers and had written down their names. I used my phone to take pictures of everything. This went beyond simple sibling rivalry. This was outright harassment. I made sure to lock the shed behind me on the trip home and carefully placed everything back precisely how I found it before sneaking out. I gave my buddy Barbara, an IT security professional, a call. I've always turned to her for IT guidance. Without delving too far into the family turmoil, I gave an explanation of the circumstances. She thought this guy sounded like a complete loser. However, even losers may do harm. You must defend yourselves. That evening, Barbara came over and assisted me in securing all of my gadgets. She also provided some suggestions on how to find the perpetrator of any more online abuse. We spent the entire evening locking things down and ordering takeout. You could just report him to the police for harassment, Barbara suggested in between mouthfuls of pad thai. I gave a head shake. Not quite yet. What he does next is what I want to watch. Having a lot of fun with fire? Barbara's eyebrows went up. Perhaps I was, but I felt compelled to take care of this myself. In addition, dealing with my parents may be necessary if the police were involved, and I wasn't prepared for that hassle. It was quiet for the following few weeks. Too quiet, perhaps. Every day I looked at my camera video, but Tyler was nowhere to be seen. Nothing, no strange calls, no parcels. I nearly believed he had given up. Then, when I was at work, I received a call from an unidentified number. I replied, against my better judgment. "Hi there, is this Alexandra?" The voice of a lady inquired. "Indeed. Who is this Karen from Credit Secure is here? On your accounts, we've seen some odd behavior. It seems that yesterday 3 credit cards were attempted to be opened in your name." I felt sick to my stomach. I dealt with the attempted identity theft over my lunch break. Fortunately, the fraud alerts I had put in place had stopped any real harm, but Tyler was obviously getting worse. This was no longer merely bothersome. It might have been illegal. My phone buzzed that night with a text message from an unknown number. "Experiencing issues with credit. Perhaps you ought to be more selective about who you snub." I didn't answer. Simply keep the number as proof. Now, though, I was truly furious. This had gotten out of hand. I was unable to concentrate at work the following day because my thoughts kept going to Tyler and his ridiculous plans for retaliation. I made the decision to check my personal email during my afternoon break. My mother sent me an email with the subject, "We need to talk about Tyler." And there it was. My fingers were sweating when I opened it. It was short. "I'm not sure what's going on between you and your stepbrother Alexandra, but ever since your visit, he's been acting strangely. Please give me a call, Mom." This time, at least, she used stepbrother. Certain things do change. I came up with a plan, but I didn't give her a call. I could play dirty too, Tyler, if he wanted to, but more intelligent. In order to speak with the manager, I first called the McDonald's where he used to work. I identified myself as a prospective employer checking Tyler. The manager's references. "Richard," a man chuckled. "Tyler lady reference." The only advice I would give that guy is to keep your distance. I've never had a worse employee than him. Stole from the register, arrived late, and left early. Harassed female coworkers. We didn't fire him. He got arrested in the parking lot for selling weed. We just never put him back on the schedule after that. Fascinating. Very different from the manager. Was envious anecdote my mom had told. I thanked Richard and hung up, then continued to step 2. I phoned Tyler's phone using a burner number I'd set up. "Yo," he responded. I altered my voice somewhat. "Hey, is this Tyler? I heard you might be able to hook me up." I was taking a gamble here, but Richard's statement about selling pot made me assume Tyler could still be dealing. "Who is this?" He sounded skeptical but curious. "Name's Quinn. Jason from the motor shop. Gave me your number. Said you could assist me out with some party materials." A pause occurred. "Yes, I am able to assist you. What are you trying to find?" That weekend, we planned to meet at the convenience store close to my parents' house. I hung up, feeling both anxious and triumphant. I didn't really intend to purchase narcotics from my unsuccessful stepbrother. All I sought was confirmation of his activities. The remainder of the week went off without any problems. I took Friday off from work and went to my hometown, where I checked into a budget motel under a fictitious identity. Perhaps a little paranoid, but better safe than sorry. I parked across from the convenience store on Saturday morning and bided my time, exactly on schedule. When Tyler arrived, he looked around anxiously. I was sitting in my car with the window open so I could hear sunglasses on and a baseball cap pulled down. He paced about for 10 minutes or so, and then he took out his phone, which I watched. The phone on my burner rang a minute later. He tried twice more before texting, "Where are you at?" when I didn't respond. I didn't answer. After waiting for another 15 minutes and becoming noticeably angry, he eventually gave up and started to return to my parents' house. He did not, however, enter. He made his way back to the shed. I waited for a while, then picked up my phone and went after him. I didn't enter the shed this time. Tyler ranting to himself while I stood at the window recording on my phone. Foolish. I wasted my time on a no-show. It could have been a ruse. The plan must be the main emphasis. In any case, I could hear him moving papers. By the time I'm finished, Alex won't know what hit her. She will regret returning. At that moment, I heard the distinct click of a pistol being handled, a sound that chilled my blood. Despite almost dropping my phone, I was able to continue filming. I should have seen her expression when I brought up Dad. Tyler chuckled to himself. Was a delicate little bitch at all times. I'd had enough. I retreated silently and went back to my vehicle. My heart is racing. Even if the tape wasn't very clear, it was enough to worry me a lot. Was Tyler only talking big to himself, or was he truly dangerous? I chose not to risk anything. I contacted Barbara after copying the recording to my laptop when I returned to the hotel. My stepbrother may be hazardous, in my opinion. I tried to speak steadily as I informed her. "Dangerous," Barbara said. "For example, I believe he may be carrying a pistol and is preparing a major scheme." Barbara was quiet for a while. "You must go to the police, Alex. No buts, but I understand. Family turmoil isn't the focus here. You must report it if you are truly worried about your safety." Naturally, she was correct, but I was still hesitant. This whole situation would become official if the cops were called. My parents would intervene. It would be untidy. Then a notice from my condo security app pinging my phone. There was an attempt to enter my unit. A delivery worker carrying a hefty item was seen on video. I hadn't placed any orders. I phoned the security department in my building right away. In Unit 412 is Alexandra. I'm not anticipating any deliveries because I'm out of town. Don't accept any parcels from me, please. The security guard responded, "It's too late, ma'am." According to the delivery guy, it was perishable and required a signature right away. It was signed for by your stepbrother. My stepbrother. There isn't a stepbrother in the area. An uneasy moment ensued. He's tall and quite heavy-set. Beard claimed to have been watching your house while you were away. He had the secret to everything. I thought I would vomit. My stepbrother isn't that guy. That person is posing as a family member. He is not authorized to be in my apartment. Kindly give the police a call right away." After hanging up, I gave Barbara a call. She lived approximately 15 minutes away from my building. At my condo is Barbara Tyler. Somehow, he obtained a key. "The cops are being called by building security. Can you go over there, though I'm on my way?" Without hesitation, she said. Barbara texted me to keep me informed as I began the 3-hour drive home. Tyler had already left when the police arrived. He had left a box of rotting fish on my kitchen counter, which was the perishable delivery. Tyler classic. It's disgusting and childish. Although they received a report, the police stated that they were powerless to take any action because there was little damage and no theft. They suggested that I apply for a restraining order and change my locks. Barbara was just finishing up my apartment when I arrived home, and she had already called a locksmith. Barbara did her best to tidy up, but I was terrified, furious, and tired. But for the most part, I was beyond being Tyler's target. As we sat on my balcony to avoid the stench, I told Barbara I have to put an end to this. Make sure he can never do this type of nonsense again, not merely stop him. "What are you contemplating?" Barbara had a worried expression. I told her it was something legal but efficient. Sunday was the next day. I was aware that Tyler would probably be sleeping in and that my parents would be having their regular breakfast at the restaurant. It was just the right time for me to phone certain people. I started by giving a friend who works at the DMV a call. I was merely seeking confirmation of my concerns, nothing unlawful. Tyler's driver's license had been suspended 6 months prior for driving without insurance and unpaid citations, as it turned out. However, until yesterday, did I witness him operating my mother's vehicle. I then gave a college friend who had become a paralegal a call. She clarified for me what precisely qualified as identity theft and harassment in our state, as well as what proof I would want in order to obtain a restraining order. I contacted my employer after having a lot. I gave a brief explanation of the circumstances and requested Monday off in order to attend to some family matters. He was sympathetic. I finally gave my mother a call. She seemed astonished to hear from me when she responded on the 3rd ring. "Are things going well, Alexandra?" "Not really, Mom. We need to speak face-to-face about Tyler. Could I visit tomorrow morning?" A lengthy pause ensued. "That would be okay, I guess." "Good, but Tom will be at work. I would want to speak with you alone initially. I'll be there at 10, though." I prepared for the remainder of Sunday. I arranged all of my supporting documentation. Everything, the recordings, the credit fraud efforts, the pictures of Tyler's Operation Payback Shed. I created hard copies and backed everything up to the cloud. I learned to be meticulous from Tyler, if anything else. I dressed carefully on Monday morning, wearing pants and a basic blouse. Not threatening, but professional. Even though I felt guilty for allowing Tyler to do this for so long, I didn't want my mother to think I was attacking him. My mother appeared anxious when I arrived. She had obviously tried. She was dressed more elegantly than her typical loungewear, and her hair was done. The residence was also immaculate. It brought back memories of her hurriedly cleaning before my stepdad arrived home from work. "Is Tyler present?" As I entered, I inquired. She gave a head shake. "He left early, claimed to have some business to attend to." "Fantastic. Anything from selling drugs to damaging my automobile once again may be the cause of that. Just in case I parked a block away." Uncomfortably, we sat on opposite ends of the couch in the living room. As far back as I could recall, my mother had a neurotic habit of always tinkering with her wedding band. I took out my evidence folder and said, "Mom, I have something I need to show you." Ever since Thanksgiving, Tyler has been bothering me. Pranks were the beginning, but it has already progressed to identity theft and house invasion. My mother's face displayed a range of emotions, including bewilderment, incredulity, defensiveness, and ultimately a sort of resigned recognition. "Every week since you returned," she added, "he's been troubled. He thinks you're being ostentatious and making him seem awful. I offered him a job and handed him $15,000, Mom. How does that reflect poorly on him?" For that, she had no response. I showed her everything. Tyler's pictures included screenshots of his efforts to commit credit card theft, as well as building surveillance footage showing him entering my unit. She appeared to get smaller on the couch with every bit of evidence. Finally, in a quiet voice, she remarked, "I don't know what you expect me to do. I anticipate that you will cease to assist him. Mom, he's no longer a kid. He is an adult who makes decisions that harm myself and other people, and it is enough for me." I took out the final paper, an application for a restraining order that I had submitted that morning. Today, I'm filing this. Tyler will not be permitted by law to get in touch with me or approach my house or place of employment. He will be arrested if he breaches it. My mother began to weep, but these weren't loud sobs. They were just tears streaming down her cheeks. I was shocked at how firm my voice was when I said, "He's my son and I'm your daughter. However, you have never shielded me from him. I'm now defending myself." We both jumped as the front door banged. Tyler, his face flushed with rage, barged into the living room. "Why in the world are you here?" He glared at me and demanded. Keeping the coffee table out of the way, I got up. "I'm discussing your small pastime of bugging me with my mother." After glancing at the documents on the table, Tyler turned to face our mother, who was smeared with tears. He felt as though something snapped in him. "Do you believe you can simply in here and make her hostile toward me after years of ignoring the family? You have no idea what we have endured." My mother urged Tyler to relax, but her voice was so faint that it was hardly audible. "No, I'm tired of her treating us like we're inferior and returning with her fine job in her condo." I spoke with a level tone. "Tyler, I never thought less of you. I made an effort to assist you, aid me." He gave a sour laugh. "You left them and me here." He pointed to our mother. "What has it been like to be the only person they could concentrate on? The only person they could control and criticize? I was under twice as much strain as you were." I didn't think he would say that. I nearly felt terrible for him for a second. Nearly. I firmly stated, "That doesn't justify what you've done." It was me, because of the harassment, the identity theft, the break-in at my house, and the chuckle that replaced the rage on Tyler's face. I gestured at the table's evidence. The grin wavered. His gaze shifted from me to the papers below. "So what if I have to, would you call the police on me now?" I automatically retreated when he made a stride in my direction. I became aware of the bulge in his jacket pocket at that point. I had heard him holding a rifle. Was that it? My mother also witnessed it? "What's in your pocket, Tyler?" He continued to stare at me, ignoring her. "Little Miss Perfect, you always think you're so clever with your ideal life, don't you, Tyler? My life isn't flawless. I just earned everything I have. Worked for it rather than attempting to bring others down." He yelled, causing my mother and I to recoil. "You had every edge. You were always more popular with Dad. You always got more aid from your teachers. You had it easier even after you departed, since nobody had any expectations of you." Tom had never liked me more, so I was perplexed. He hardly put up with me. I'd always thought Tom didn't like me. Throughout my upbringing, he was aloof, judgmental, and appeared irritated by my very existence. I never thought that after I departed, his attitude toward me may have altered. Tyler spit out, not at Tom. "Your stepfather is my dad. It wasn't you who had to meet unrealistic expectations. After you departed, you weren't the one who was constantly contrasted to his intelligent stepdaughter." I hadn't anticipated that storyline twist, though. I looked at my mother, who wasn't even looking at us. "Is that accurate?" I questioned her. She let out a long sigh. "After you went, Tom changed. He took pride in your independence. Began to question why Tyler wasn't more like that. The irony almost made me chuckle. Even if I believed Tyler was the best child ever, and he had been living in my shadow ever since I left, his actions were nonetheless unacceptable. I cautiously murmured, "Tyler," observing his hand straying back toward his pocket. "What you're doing today is not justified by anything that has happened in the past. This must end. or what he made a challenge. Alternatively, I'll apply for this restraining order today and face substantial jail time for identity theft and breaking and entering. Tyler. When he reached into his pocket, he took out my mother's vehicle keys rather than a revolver. I wish you luck in proving anything. I'm leaving this place. Hold on, Tyler. He was on his way to the door when my mother called. I recalled what my acquaintance from the DMV had told me. The list should also include any fees associated with driving while your license is suspended. His hand was on the doorknob when he froze. What are you discussing? I checked, and your license was suspended 6 months ago. Tyler turned slowly, a look of incredulity mixed with anger on his face. Have you looked at my license? Why do you have the right? The same, isn't it? I suppose you had to look up my credit history, I said coolly. The distinction is that I didn't attempt to jeopardize your financial future. He glanced at our mother, then at me, then at the keys he was holding. I briefly feared that he might hurl the keys at me. Rather, he slapped them upon the table in the foyer and hurried out the front door. After he went, my mom and I sat silently for a while. He requires assistance. Professional assistance that neither you nor Tom can offer, I eventually said. Slowly, she nodded. He threatens to leave every time we make suggestions, even though I know we've been friends for a while. I cannot lose any more kids. Her comments struck me hard and unexpectedly. I dismissed the idea that she could have assumed I was lost. You're not assisting him right now by allowing him to carry on in this manner. He is attempting to ruin my life while ruining his own. How will you respond? Quietly, she asked. I collected my supporting documentation and returned it to the folder. Tyler will determine that. I won't press charges or seek for a restraining order if he entirely ceases the harassing. But I will do all in my power to go to the police if there is even one more incident. I got up to go, but my mother grabbed me by the hand. I apologize for everything, Alexandra, for allowing things to go this terrible and for failing to protect you when you were younger. Alongside Tyler. I had never heard her truly apologize before. Since I was at a loss for words, I simply nodded and withdrew my hand. I said as I made my way to my car, I'll let myself out. Somehow, I felt lighter. Not because I'd defeated Tyler, but because I'd finally defended myself without giving up. He had the upper hand. I had no idea that Tyler would soon return the favor with a vengeance. My personal phone called with an unfamiliar number 2 days later when I was at work. Almost ignoring it, I chose to respond. Hi there, is this Alexandra? The voice of a lady inquired. Indeed. Who is this Patricia from Westside Hospital is here? Tyler, your stepbrother is in the emergency department. He has you on his emergency contact list. A beat skipped in my chest. Is he all right? What took place? Despite having been in an accident, he is stable. He's requesting you. I drove to the hospital and informed my supervisor that I had a family emergency. My thoughts are racing. Was this a genuine situation or just another of Tyler's plots? There's just one way to know. I was shown to a curtained bed in the emergency room where Tyler lay, looking drawn and pale. He had a severe cut on his forehead and his right arm was in a cast. He seemed truly startled when he spotted me and exclaimed, "You came!" What took place, I asked, trying to cross the highway on foot while remaining close to the foot of the bed and not paying attention. He averted his gaze after being struck by a vehicle. You were crossing the freeway, but why? He gave his good shoulder a shrug. Visiting a friend's home. Then the nurse entered and checked Tyler's vitals. Due to the concussion, the doctor wants to detain him overnight for observation. Have you got his insurance details? Tyler had a terrified expression. I don't have insurance, like I mentioned. The nurse gave me a hopeful expression. Even after everything Tyler had done, I still felt conflicted. I felt something when I saw him hurt and exposed. I was unable to completely escape a sense of accountability. This youngster, who had been influenced by the same dysfunctional household from which I had fled, was nonetheless the one I had grown up with. I had the option to leave. I took out my wallet, even though I kind of wanted to. I promised her I would take care of the papers. Give us a minute, please. Tyler refused to look at me after she left. This doesn't cost you anything. I am aware that I cannot repay you. I am also aware of that. For a minute, we sat in awkward quiet. What brought you here? At last, he inquired. You are still family in spite of everything I have done, so I gave the subject some thought. Additionally, I wanted to confirm that you were genuinely wounded and not only trying to trick me. That nearly made him smile. All right. To be sure he was observing me, I leaned forward. Tyler, though this is it, my final deed of kindness. I won't think twice about using all I own against you if you ever try to ruin my life again. You get it? Slowly, he nodded. Yes, I understand. Excellent. I'll cover your hospital expense now and give you another chance to make things better. It is up to you what you do with it. He yelled, Alex, I turned what as I got up to go. I apologize for the Thanksgiving dad remark. It was too far. It was something, but it wasn't a complete apology. I acknowledged with a nod and proceeded to locate the billing department. At the time, I was unable to determine if Tyler was genuinely sorry or only stating what he believed I wanted to hear. All I knew was that my victimization was over. I wouldn't mind if Tyler changed or not. I had created my life for no one but myself. I couldn't lose that to Tom Tyler or my mother. After I paid Tyler's hospital bill and gave the physicians my contact information, I felt for the first time that I was free of my family's turmoil and stepped outside into the sunshine. I was prepared for whatever came next, whether it was a brief ceasefire or the conclusion of Tyler's retaliation. When I left the hospital that day, I didn't know if I had finally connected with Tyler, or if I had just made the worst mistake of my life. I was almost expecting the second shoe to drop. Perhaps the entire incident was a sophisticated ruse to get me to cover his medical expenses. Yet the physicians said his injuries were unquestionably genuine. It would take weeks for the fractured arm to fully heal, but the concussion was minor. For the following several days, I made an effort to forget about Tyler and concentrate on my job. After this one ball was in his court, I had done all I could, paid his medical costs, given him another chance, and made it very plain that there would be no more chances. I received a notice around a week following the hospital visit. My mother texted me to inquire whether I had heard from Tyler. Evidently, after being released from the hospital, he had not returned home. I offered that he may be staying with a friend and informed her that I hadn't heard anything. Despite her lack of conviction, she thanked me. Another 2 weeks passed without any more Tyler drama harassment, strange parcels, or attempts at credit card theft. I began to calm down a bit, considering that perhaps the hospital fear had given him some insight. My doorbell then rang. It was a Saturday afternoon. I froze when I looked at my security camera. Tyler was standing outside my door wearing clean pants and a button-up shirt that I had never seen him wear before, and he seemed uncomfortable. He had black bags under his eyes, and his arm was still in a cast. I thought about not responding, but my curiosity won out. Keeping the security chain in place, I opened the door. "Why are you here? May I enter?" Without looking into my eyes, he asked. "All I want to do is chat. You left decaying fish on my counter the last time you were here." He flinched. "Yes, I am sorry about that and all of the other things." I looked at him for a while. He seemed awful weaker, exhausted, and strangely anxious. It wasn't the arrogant fool who had been harassing me for months. "I'm recording this conversation on my phone," I remarked, shutting the door to break the chain after 5 minutes. As I allowed him in, I added, After giving me a nod, Tyler followed me into the living room without taking a seat. He simply stood there, clumsily fumbling with his cast's edge. So, after an awkward moment, I asked, "I wanted to let you know that I will no longer be pestering you. I got a job, specifically 2 jobs. Shifts in the morning in the warehouse and in the evening at a petrol station. That was not what was expected. All right, well done." I raised an eyebrow and said, "And I'm paying back Mom for all the money she's loaned me over the years, starting with the car insurance I let lapse. What caused this?" He gave a shrug. "I suppose it was the accident," and he paused. After the hospital had a chance to reflect, I was forced to spend a few nights sleeping in my car. Hold on, you've been residing in your vehicle. Why, Tom replaced the locks. Tyler's tone sounded flat. Claimed I couldn't return until I stopped bothering his stepdaughter and got my act straight. I was truly taken aback. In fact, after all these years, Tom had defended me. In any case, Tyler went on, I simply wanted to sincerely apologize this time. My actions were screwed up. It wasn't fair to you. I was at a loss for words. I was skeptical, in part. He sounded earnest, but this was simply another way of manipulating the situation. Now, where are you staying? After asking, I was given a room in a house with other men. It's not a fantastic place to sleep, but it's better than a Honda Civic. I had a glimmer of pity in spite of everything. Do you require cash? He gave a short shake of his head. No, I didn't come for that. In fact, I did. Using his good hand, he delved inside his pocket and took out an envelope. This is what I wanted to give you. I carefully accepted it and peered inside. It was money, not very much. A few of $100 perhaps. For what use is this? It's the beginning of repaying you for the check you gave me at Thanksgiving and the hospital cost. Like a fool, I wasted that money. I gazed at him, attempting to determine whether this was genuine. I don't need it, Tyler. I have to repay it, even though I know you don't need it. For the first time, he gave me a direct glance. I'm attempting to mend everything, not just with you. The envelope was placed on the coffee table by me. Don't lose it. Make use of it to stand up, but simply continue on your current course if you truly want to repay me. That would have greater significance than Tyler's seeming wealth. He may protest, but he simply nodded. All right, I found myself saying, do you want to grab coffee sometime? As he turned to go. Possibly next week, but not today. His expression of astonishment was almost funny. That would be indeed. I sat on my couch feeling strangely sad after he departed. Although I wasn't foolish enough to believe that a single talk could suddenly resolve years of dysfunction, it seemed as though there could be a possibility for something better. After I phoned Barbara to let her know about Tyler's predicament, he just arrived and expressed regret. As simple as that. She sounded doubtful. I realize this is strange, but he appeared different. As in, truly humbled. Alex, people don't change all at once. It took time. He was admitted to the hospital over a month ago, and it appears that he has been homeless for some of that time. Barbara let out a sigh. Just watch out, will you? Be a little more vigilant. She was correct. I couldn't help feeling cautiously optimistic, even if one apology didn't undo all that had happened. Halfway between his new accommodation and my apartment, Tyler and I met at a coffee shop the next week. When I got there, he was already at a corner table, nervously tearing up a napkin. We engaged in awkward small conversation about his new work and the weather. I offered him the sanitized version of my work when he inquired about it. I'm not yet ready to divulge too much. After we had run out of safe things to talk about, I eventually mentioned how our mother and Tom Tyler frowned. Mom is sad that I left home and is often urging me to return. In a strange way, Tom has helped me discover a home of my own. Really. The Tom I recall doesn't sound like that. Yes, all right. Tyler paused. There was a major altercation following your visit. It was larger than I had ever seen. Mom was standing up for me. I needed penalties, Tom said. It became quite unsightly. I experienced a twinge of remorse. I had no intention of creating trouble. You didn't. It took a while for this to happen. In fact, Tom has spent the last few years receiving treatment. Tyler chuckled amusingly, as if he was trying to better control his wrath. He should have done it when we were youngsters, wouldn't he? What I was hearing was unbelievable. Is Tom receiving therapy? Yes. His doctor warned him that he was about to have a heart attack and that he needed to get care. Being an angry jerk all the time turns out to be bad for your health. Tyler went on to say, I think seeing all the evidence of what I'd been doing to you was a wake-up call for both of them and for me. We both sat with that information for a moment anyway. To be honest, the topic of childhood recollections then came up. Most awful, some decent. We had never truly discussed what it was like to grow up in that house until that moment. I came to see that our parents had harmed us in different ways. "Do you know what's wrong?" As we prepared to depart, Tyler stated, "Although I was envious of you for leaving, I never made an attempt to do the same. When everyone tells you that you can't make it alone, it's difficult to go." He gave a contemplative nod. "Yes, but I'm currently working that out, I suppose." We decided to get together once again the following week. I had the impression that I was meeting my stepbrother for the first time as I drove home. Tyler and I became cautious friends over the course of the following few months. Every few weeks, we would get together for coffee. Sometimes we would just chat, and other times we would sit in cozy quiet. He was always at work. He had established a bank account, worked 2 jobs, and was gradually establishing a life for himself. I kept expecting him to make a mistake or admit that this whole thing was a big scam, but it never occurred. Months after his surprise visit to my condo, Tyler emailed me to ask if we could meet at our favorite coffee shop, demonstrating his sincere desire to change his life. He was grinning when I got there. As soon as I sat down, he stated that I had been promoted at the warehouse. Regular hours should be paid by the shift supervisor. That's fantastic. Congratulations, Tyler. I'm also leaving my job at the petrol station. Instead, I'm going to spend those nighttime hours to earn my GED. I was very amazed. "Whoa, aren't you actually doing this?" His expression was one of embarrassment and pride as he nodded. "Yes. As it happens, I'm not quite terrible at anything." "Who could have known?" I said without thinking I knew. "I gave you the bank job back at Thanksgiving for that reason." He lowered his face slightly. "Yes, regarding that, I apologize for being such a jerk. It would have been an excellent chance." "Well, perhaps we can discuss it more once you have your GED. My bank is always hiring. Surprised that you would still assist me get a job after everything." Tyler glanced up. When someone is sincerely attempting to improve, as you obviously are, they deserve another opportunity. The remainder of our coffee date was devoted to discussing GED requirements and potential job openings at my bank in the future. Planning a future that positively included Tyler seemed strange but nice. I had a buzzing phone that night. My mother had called me. Since Tyler's injury, our talks had increased, but they had often been quick and surface level. "Alexandra." Her voice was unusual, quieter than normal. "I wanted to express my gratitude." "For what purpose?" "For anything you told Tyler." He is presently doing really well. Tom and I are quite pleased with him. I had an odd spectrum of feelings. Mom, I didn't do anything. These adjustments were performed by Tyler himself. Even though you had every reason not to, you gave him a chance. I also acknowledge that I didn't always treat you well when you were growing up. Unprepared for this talk, I tightened my hold on the phone. "You don't have to, Mom." "I do indeed. I have been conversing with someone." "To a counselor." She gave a tense laugh. "This family seems to be in treatment right now, except from you." "Who says I'm not?" "Though I wasn't fair enough," I answered. "In any case, I just wanted to express my gratitude for giving me another opportunity and my apologies for a lot of things." I just responded, "Thanks, Mom," as I was at a loss for words. I sat on my balcony and gazed at the sky after we hung up, reflecting on how much had changed in less than a year from the Thanksgiving catastrophe to whatever this new family dynamic was becoming. Tyler completed his GED with flying colors 6 months later. He surprised me by inviting my mom and Tom to the celebration supper we had together. The pleasantness of the evening was even more surprising. Compared to what I recalled, Tom seemed quieter and less controlling. Instead of merely waiting for her turn to speak, my mom looked more engaged and attentive to what others had to say. Tyler drew me aside at the conclusion of the evening. He handed me an envelope and said, "I have something for you." A check for $15,000, the precise sum I had given him at Thanksgiving, was inside. "You don't have to do this, Tyler." "Yes, I do." He smiled, adding that I've been living really cheaply and saving money thanks to the promotion. In addition, I was hired for the entry-level job at the downtown branch of your bank. I appreciate you adding a positive phrase. On your own, you merited that position. You had great interview scores, I informed him plainly. But without you, I wouldn't be here. He indicated the check. And that's only the start. Additionally, I will reimburse you for every penny you spent on my medical costs. Tyler was insistent, despite my attempts to argue. This is about accountability, not just money. It all comes down to being the type of guy who pays his bills on time. I could see by his resolute expression that he needed this more than I did the cash. So I just said thank you and received the check. Barbara asked me how my family was doing while we were out to lunch later that week. Surprisingly excellent, I informed her. I feel as though I have a whole new family that I never would have imagined. Are you certain Tyler has truly changed, not only pretending I thought about the query? Really, I believe so. Nearly a year has passed with no warning signs. He's saving money, working hard, and even discussing taking classes at a small college the next year. Barbara gave a nod. Well, when someone reaches their lowest point, they can change. That accident seems to have been a wake-up call for him. I emphasized that sometimes facing repercussions is the best thing for someone, especially after Tom shut them out. What comes next? Barbara inquired. We simply keep building, I don't know. I suppose. Coffee dates one at a time. The manager of Tyler's downtown branch texted me that night asking me to be ready for the personal banking team. I texted you back. You're the reason for this. No, you are to blame. Simply said, I'm happy that you're doing well. He answered in a flash. This Sunday, the family will have supper at Mom's. Tom's new health food fad will not harm you. His personality seems to have changed to that of Kale. I typed, sure, I'll bring dessert, after laughing out. I became aware of something significant as I put my phone down. The dysfunctional family dynamic that had characterized my early years was no longer there. We weren't even close to flawless. However, every one of us was making an effort in our own manner. Perhaps that was sufficient. I would never have a normal sibling connection with Tyler. We had too many wounds and too much history for it. However, we had a careful friendship based on respect for one another and sincere effort that worked for us. And I felt like I had a brother, not just a stepbrother who made my life unpleasant for the first time in my life. Your family may not always be the same as the one you were born into, or even the one you grew up in. Sometimes it's the one you created by having difficult talks, giving people second opportunities, and choosing to see them for who they are striving to become rather than just who they have been.